From the Fathead Studio in Speedway, Indiana, this is The Skinny.
Man, am I still pretty? And he's like, you ain't pretty, but you're going to be all right.
And now I'm just hanging on, looking at the wall, like flying this way. And I'm like, oh man, I got to let go of this thing at some point.
And then there's one that could literally pick you up.
Yeah.
It's
I'm not really sure about that, but yeah.
That's called a helicopter.
Well,
and the last lap was just chaos. I mean, like 4 wide, 5 wide.
It's like whatever, if you land it and send it into the fence, you're probably not gonna get hurt. Bounce, and then this insane roll, the car that Keegan was in. I mean, I don't know, it's the shape of the Beetle or what, but that thing sent it.
So I was the supercharger specialist on my old man's car with
Specialist?
Yeah, it sounds cooler than crew guy.
Hi, I'm Tony Stewart.
I'm Mario Andretti.
I'm Christy Wheat.
I'm Alexander Rossi.
I'm Cruz Pedregon.
Hey, I'm Antron Brown, and this is The Skinny.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to The Skinny. We have a great show coming your way here today. Super excited to have one of the best NHRA Pro Stock racers of all time on the show, Mr. Greg Anderson. I'm Ken Stout. The big guy sitting alongside that is Rico Elmore. As you can see, we are still in the MAVTV booth taking advantage of this one. It is absolutely beautiful and a full staff here to work with as well. Mr. Steve Grind's cutting the show together for us. Arlen Lehman is on one of the cameras. Bill's on another camera. We have Greg Hunter, who we work with a lot. One of the studios here in the Indianapolis area, not in Speedway, Indiana. That's for you, Ryan. But it's great to have Hunter here as well, taking care of all the audio. So a great show coming your way. How about the winningest driver in the history of NHRA Pro Stock, second all-time to some guy by the name of John Force. Mr. Greg Anderson joins us here on the set. Thanks for taking the time, man. Thanks for cruising over here.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. This is pretty cool.
It's awesome.
Yeah, we had your teammate on yesterday morning in this same time slot, and he was explaining to us that you weren't happy when he beat you. And I said, is he ever happy when he gets beat? So,
hey, name me a good loser, and I'll tell you, he's a loser. If you're not first, you are last. That is absolutely a true statement. If you're not first, you're last. And anytime you lose, you're last.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Pretty simple.
Pretty simple.
You look back at your career, man, you're the better part of, I mean, you're 30 years. If you take a look at your mechanics version of this career, you're pushing 40 years in this deal.
It is. I kind of consider it 2 lifetimes, two separate lifetimes. You know, I spent years as a mechanic under Warren Johnson. We all know that, right? Never thought I'd ever leave that gig. That was the dream job for me. I grew up a mechanic. That's what I wanted to do with all my life. And I spent 12 years as a crew chief, basically, for Warren Johnson. Won a lot of races, had a lot of fun, learned a ton. But then an opportunity came one day to jump inside of one of these things and try driving it. And that started life number 2, I guess, for Greg Anderson. And that's been equally as rewarding a life. You know, that first life was great, fantastic, and it certainly got me to the opportunity to get inside of a car and do what I do now. But this second life has gone way farther than I ever thought it would. When I first got the opportunity to drive one of these things, I thought, well, the goal for me is, I didn't set a goal up here. The goal for me was to go see if I could qualify at one of these races. Not win, not anything like that. I never thought about winning races, or certainly, 100 races like we have now. It just all it spiraled, and it all came together at the right time, and I was able to surround myself with the right people. That's absolutely the main thing I learned in all those years working with Warren Johnson. You have to surround yourself with great people, and people are what makes this thing work. It is a team sport, without a doubt. It's not just that driver. You have to have a complete team, and every nutter bolt on that car's got to be better than a nutter bolt on any other guy's car. So it's been great. I've had the nucleus of the team together for 20 years now, and it showed. If you can keep a team together and keep all these great minds together and let them do what they do best, you focus on what you do best, it's just sky's the limit, and we proved that. So very proud of what I've created here with this race team. And people ask me, are you proud of all those race wins and things? What I'm the most proud of is that somehow I figured out the right people to surround myself with, because that's more important than anything. And as I say, going back, that's one of the lessons I learned working with Warren Johnson. People are what make this sport go.
The longevity is just mind-boggling to me. And again, that's putting yourself in the right place, yes, the right team to do that. But did you ever imagine 40 years later you'd be sitting where you're at?
No, absolutely not. I set a low goal, I guess, just go qualify for a race. And then as I got to that level, well, hey, we could try and win one of these things. And I can remember back to 2001 when I won my very first race in Bristol, Tennessee. And it was the coolest thing I'd ever done, right? But I guarantee everyone at that racetrack thought, well, he'll be one and done. That was just a lucky win. See if he can do it again. And here we are, 102 more later. So I guess I backed it up.
Yeah, backed it up a little bit. I love the story with WJ and you and Kurt, and the story of you three going at it with each other. I mean, not that it was volatile over there ever, but
yeah, I wouldn't call it volatile, but we certainly had our moments without a doubt. And the longer you spend with someone, I guess the more boisterous you become. I think I stayed in a shell for the first 10 years, and maybe those last 2 years I started speaking up a little bit. And for right or for wrong, yes, that's what happened. We had a sit down with Warren one day, Kurt and I, and we were critiquing his driving. And he said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to send both of you guys to Roy Hill's drag racing school. You're both going to get inside of one of these cars, and you're going to see how difficult this stuff is. And here we are.
Two great drivers are born.
Here we are. So it's Warren's fault. He created this mess. He created this monster. So he can take the credit or he can take the fault, whatever you want to.
And I love it. You said that Kurt was able to go out on his own and you had obligations.
Yeah, well, I needed a job. I wasn't family. I wasn't blood. Kurt certainly had a little more leeway, so he found a ride at an NHRA race the next week. He's now a pro stock driver. I couldn't do that.
He also had that last name. So
he had the last name. So, yes, as tight as we were as a group, he was family. I wasn't. So, yeah, he got the opportunity first. But, I bided my time, and I thought, maybe someday I'll get a shot. So I needed a job, obviously. So I kept doing what I was doing, which was crew chiefing Warren's car, and we were winning races. So all was good. But now it's in the back of my head. Never before was it in the back of my head. I wanted to drive one of these things. So that started the whole chain of events, and really honestly thought that someday I would get a chance to drive for Warren because, he was advancing in age and he was getting to the point where, maybe I'll only do this another year or two, maybe I'll only do this. So I kind of bided my time, and that went on for 2-3 years until I finally saw through the trees and said, you know what? He's not going to quit. He's not going to quit driving this race car. He'll drive it until they drag him out of the race car. And I was right. So I found an opportunity to leave and tried driving one of these with my future father-in-law. And years later, I looked back and laughed because he was still racing. I would have never got the opportunity to drive for him. So I made the right move. But I will tell you, when I did leave him, I sat down and I told him, now, look, I have no earthly idea if I can do this or not. So I may be knocking on your door for a job when I come back. So hopefully I'm not burning any bridges or leaving on bad terms here, because chances are I'll be back looking for my old job back, but never came back. Give me that smirk. Who's your daddy? It's
The Skinny is brought to you by Fatheads Eyewear. Fatheads Eyewear, hardcore since '04. And American Coach. Innovation is our life force.
Welcome back to the Skinny. You were looking at Mr. Greg Anderson. How about 176 final rounds, 124 number one qualifying efforts, and 103 wins. He is an absolute machine in the NHRA Pro Stock ranks. Great to have him here on the show with us here in the MAVTV booth. Ken Stout, Rico Elmore sitting right alongside. Rico was kind enough to get this guy to commit and come on the show. We certainly appreciate you taking the time, man. And you were just telling some great stories there about working for Warren Johnson. I have a question for you. So you brought up one question, but the first one I want to ask you was, you talked about your first win. Do you remember the first time you beat Warren Johnson?
No, but I remember the first time I lost to Warren Johnson, and my first win came in 2001, and I think the first final round I made was actually in maybe 1999 or 2000. And somehow, some way, I made it all the way to the final round at Indy. Of all places, Indy. Guess who's in the other lane in the final? WJ. And I was on a roll, man. I'm going to win Indy. This is going to be cool, right? My first race, biggest race in the world. I'm going to win Indy, first time ever. He wore me out like a cheap suit. I mean, it wasn't even a competition, right? And we got to the end of the track, and he just kind of gave me that smirk. Who's your daddy? It's I'll never forget that. I honestly can't remember the first time I beat him, but I'll never forget that first time I lost to him. It was big. It was final round at Indy.
That is absolutely amazing. And I he was such a character. And, you know, Tony Stewart, great friend of ours, of course. And we talk about the things that some parts of motorsports missing now, and it's those characters like the WJ.
Yep.
Because, you know, you go over there and stick a mic on him, and I mean,
you never know what you're going to
get. Not real sure.
You never know
what's coming.
It wasn't a smile.
No, 9 times out of 10, it wasn't anything kind. No.
What was it like being in the shop with him to have that moment to sit down and critique WJ's driving? You said that. I'm like, oh my goodness, that had to be a special moment right there.
Probably overstepping our bounds just a little bit. And I don't remember if alcohol had been involved before that happened, but Kurt and I got very proud of ourselves and we approached him. And I don't know, I can look back and say that was probably the wrong thing to do, but it created all this. Somehow, some way, it worked out.
Got a pretty good career out of it.
Somehow it worked out for the better for me.
Was he a tough cat to work for?
You know, he wasn't a hard guy to work for as long as you were a hard worker, which I was. You know, we both grew up in Minnesota in the cold up there, so we both had that really, really tough work ethic that you don't have to push somebody to do stuff. You're always moving up there. You're always working up there, or you freeze to death, for God's sake. So it's just what you learn when you grow up in the North. And when I came to work for Warren, he didn't have to follow me around the floor and say, I want you to do this, I want you to do that. He basically hired you and said, here's the job you got to do. You're responsible for this part of the race car, this part of the shop. He walked away. So honestly, he wasn't a micromanager. He just expected a lot out of you. If you didn't perform, if you were a slacker, you wanted to do a job and then take a break, or he had to come after you to keep after you to do something, you'd have had a problem with him. I never had a problem with him because I loved to work. And I thought I probably worked too much at the time. I worked basically 7 days a week for him, but I could never, not one time, show up at that shop before him. And I couldn't possibly any day leave after him.
Really?
He was always there before you, and he was there after you left at night, no matter how many hours I worked. That was his life, and I was just as bad, I guess, but you still couldn't outwork him. So he led by example, without a doubt, and great guy. He knew a little bit of everything. He had done so many things in his life that I hadn't realized he had done before drag racing. He managed companies. He built stuff. There was not one project that I got into that I couldn't figure out that he hadn't done before, and he could show me how to do it. So I just learned a ton from him, and he is absolutely the professor. I won't deny that. And if you wanted to pay attention, you wanted to work hard for him, you will learn a lot, and you know, you'd be able to be well-rounded just like he was. So.
Come over to your pits. You're always working on the car. You're right in the middle of it. Cody, your son, which I absolutely love. Great kid. I think he cheats at golf, but we won't get into the golf game. But he's an unbelievable golfer for everybody at home. But
is he a scratch golfer?
Basically scratch.
Yeah. He showed up at Top Golf when we were there in Charlotte, and watched him about put one clear over the fence at the end of the.
Whenever they hit him and they go.
Yeah.
We don't make that sound when we hit him.
No.
I don't know what's different, but
yeah.
But
he's tall, skinny, well built. I mean, can just get through the ball like nobody's business. But I see him working side by side with you. I'm assuming there's a lot of that same stuff going on there.
Yeah, that's pretty cool to me. You know, for a lot of years, Rico, he was 100% into golf, and that's what he wanted to do with his life. And I love that. I absolutely, because I love golf, right?
Yep.
And I wish that someday he could have, been on a professional golf tour, and I could have been his caddy. That was my dream job for after this gig gets over. I want to be a professional caddy for my kid. That was cool. So it just didn't pan out because it basically got to the time in life where he had to start making a living. Tough to make a living in golf at that age. So I gave him a job on a race car. Really didn't have any interest in race cars at the time. It was all about golf. So I gave him a job just to kind of get him through and get him some income. And he basically slowly over time started to really, really appreciate this life, this line of work. And he's progressed now where he can do just about anything on a race car from front bumper to rear bumper. And he's actually gotten an itch to drive a car now. So quite honestly, I'm certainly pushing my window on how long I can continue to do this against these 25-year-old kids I'm racing against. So reality says it's about time for me to step out, and my candle is getting close to the end as far as the driving end. So I'm going to give him a shot. I'm going to give him a shot at driving.
Give him a call and tell him to sit you down and critique your driving a little bit because that path worked pretty good.
I'm sure he already does. So. But yeah, I'm going to give him a shot to drive one of these things.
I love it.
He's earned his way now, and he's figured out, I didn't really want to do anything like that until he really learned the ins and outs of all this operation.
Yeah.
I think you really need that. That's what I had, and I think that makes me a better driver to know how to work on a car and what everything's all about. So he's now learned that quite well, and I think he's about ready. Basically went into a shell and told myself, I don't know what else in the world could happen to me from this point on that can affect me any more than that did.
Welcome back to the Skinny. We're here in the MAVTV booth. We have Mr. Greg Anderson on the show with us, who currently shares a record with Tony Schumacher, most wins in a single season with the NHRA at 15. Another impressive stat here, as the list is extremely long. But I want to go back to whenever things first started for you. Duluth, Minnesota. You're up there in the cold country. Dad raced a modified Eliminator in Division 5. Is that when you got the bug?
That is correct. I think I was probably 12, 13 years old, and I think from the very first time he took me to a racetrack to one of these events, that's it. I was hooked. You're done. You're never getting that hook out. You will not get it out of the fish. You're hooked for life. It absolutely is. And that is not a cliche. That is the truth. And I've seen it so many times with other people. Once you get involved with this sport, you're not getting out.
Did you start wrenching on Dad's car?
I did. And basically what happened there was I worked on his car, and he didn't race, full time like we do now. He raced the Division 5, which is about a 5-state area, and he would go to some of the divisional races. But through doing that, he became good friends with a gentleman by the name of John Hagan, who raced Pro Stock in Division 5. Him and Warren were kind of the two hitters in Division 5, and they went at it. They were both from Minneapolis area, and my father became a great friend with John Hagan, and he was able to get me into basically a job, apprenticeship, whatever you want to call it, working with John Hagan and going kind of touring the country a little bit and doing, the full-time Pro Stock deal. And learned a ton, had a great time. He was like a second father to me, and unfortunately we lost him in 1983 in a bad wreck at Brainerd, at BRIR at a national event in 1983. So that was, as I said, he was like a second father to me, and it something I had never experienced in life before. It completely knocked me to the ground, and I quit racing. I went back home, went to work for my father on his used car lot, and worked on used cars and for 5 years, until one day I got a call from Warren and Kurt Johnson and said, "Are you ready to get back into this gig?" And then, honestly, I needed the 3, 4, 5 years to reassess. Is this really what I wanted to be involved with? Because I had never been exposed to anything tragic like that before. So it was a life-changing moment for me. I would have been probably about 20 years old when that happened, 19, 20 years old, and didn't get back till I was 25,
I read that story because a lot of people think your career started with Warren Johnson, but it really did start earlier with your father and then John Hagan and that August 1983. I was going to ask you how that affected you in your life, and reading about it devastated you so bad. Walk us through those emotions and those feelings. So how does it hit a guy that's working on the car so bad that he wants? We just had Dan Binks on. Dan Binks was crew chiefing with Tommy Kendall, and Tommy Kendall had that nasty wreck in 1991, and Dan Binks said the same thing. He said, "I just wanted to quit. I just wanted to get out." So what is that psyche that goes through your mind that says, "You know what, I just don't want to be part of this"?
The first thing was just flat numbness. You didn't know what to think. You didn't know how to act. You didn't know what to think. His family, his wife and his 2 young kids were not at the track that day. They were in town, but they were not at the track yet that day. So the first thing I had to do was make that call to them and get them out to the racetrack. And it just... I had never been through anything like that before, so I didn't know how to act, just complete numbness, and it just, once it was all said and done and over, and unfortunately we had lost him, I just went home and basically went into a shell and told myself, I don't know what else in the world could happen to me from this point on that can affect me any more than that did. I'm now going to become numb to anything outside of my life, what goes on. This is as bad as it could get. And it just took me kind of years to come back from that. And as bad as I love the sport, just didn't want anything to do with it for a while. So,
were you part? There were some safety advancements that came out of that wreck. Were you a part of any of that?
Absolutely. We first thing we didn't have guard walls all the way down the racetrack. So what happened was he got a little sideways and caught the edge of the racetrack, which was grass, and then the car started flipping. So guard wall would have certainly contained him, kept him in the racetrack. We wouldn't have lost him. The second major change was we were also very close with Don Ness, the chassis builder, right? At that particular time, Pro Stock cars were built like like a stock eliminator car would have been, where you have a main roll bar that comes across the front and then the main ones go, and that's it. Nothing surrounding the driver. So right after that, Don Ness created what they call the funny car style cage for a Pro Stock car. And now if you look in a Pro Stock car, we basically have a roll bars all around us, just like funny car would have. We didn't have that before. So those two things there alone came from that wreck, absolutely improved the future safety of the sport. So yeah, feel great about that. Just wish, light bulb would have went off before that we would have figured these things out before that. Unfortunately, it takes usually something tragic for you to go forward on safety advancements.
And we were talking to Kyle Koretsky about Kenny's wreck. And, without those advancements, that could have been even worse.
Absolutely positive. Without a doubt, it would have been worse. So those two things alone were probably the two biggest advancements we've ever seen, certainly in this class. I don't remember anything as big as that following that, but those two ones right there, guarantee have saved a lot of lives since then. On and on and on. It just was debauchery. It was incredible.
Welcome back to the MAVTV booth. Here we're shooting another version here of the Skinny. Great to have Mr. Greg Anderson on the show with us. That is Rico Elmore, who was able to secure him and commit him and make sure that he was going to be here. And it was great for Greg to actually follow through. Superstar racers they're not always the most dependable, but great to have you with us, man. We certainly appreciate it. We've been documenting, of course, some of his record numbers inside of the industry, but then going back to talk about how he got started up there in Duluth, Minnesota. His father, who was a Division V racer, and then, of course, talked about his friend John Hagan, who unfortunately passed away, wrenching on a Pro Stock there. But up there racing at Brainerd, how exciting was it for you to come back there 20 years later and grab a win? Is that one of the biggest on the resume?
Absolutely is. And everybody talks about the zoo up there. People really have no idea what that zoo used to be. The zoo these days is a way watered down version of what the zoo used to be. So we could go into stories about that we probably have to go off air for that. So certainly a lot of great times there in the old days.
It also airs on YouTube.
Yeah,
so we can...
right. But to come back and win a race at Brainerd, to me, and I remember it as clear as day. That first race I was finally able to win there. John Hagan's wife and kids were there supporting me, and I was able to hand the trophy to them, present the trophy to them for that win. It was a great day in my life, and hopefully it brightened their day and helped things with them too. They've been great supporters of mine ever since the tragedy, and as I said, they were second family to me. So that was a great day, mainly for that reason, that I could give something back to them.
Yeah, it's funny you talk about the zoo. We were talking off air yesterday. I said, the thing about it is, you could literally make a whole documentary on that. And I mean, nowadays but back in the day, unfortunately, but it just kind of gives you an idea. Back in the day, I mean, there were people that didn't make it out of their life, literally. And
that's a party.
It's beyond a party. Yeah.
But I mean, there was a ravine or a ditch or whatever.
Sippy hole, whatever you want to call it.
Running through the middle of this. Well, it had rained, like unbelievably rained. Well, this thing was probably a quarter mile long. They've got a four-wheeler pulling a guy on a board, and he's
surfing.
I'm like, what do we? There's no wonder people don't make it out of here.
Some of these kids would show up with brand new, beautiful 4-wheel drive, jacked up Ford trucks or whatever, brand new, right? $80,000 trucks, and they go run this thing through that sippy hole and bury it in there. And basically, somebody'd have to come up, find a way to tow it out of there. And it was Daddy's truck. They had borrowed Daddy's truck to go to the race for the weekend, and they're running it through the sippy hole. And that was just common. That's just what went on and on and on and on. It just was debauchery. It was incredible.
And everybody, the folks that live up there, some of the most amazing people on the planet. But the funny part is, or the cool part is, I guess I should say, is that's their vacation. They will set up there for 2 weeks, a week.
They make their plan a year. But when they leave the event from one year, they're already making their plan. What kind of crazy vehicle they're going to build to bring back to the zoo next year? What kind of ungodly thing that you drive through the pit area or through the zoo, and then you run it through this mud hole, this sippy hole. It's a year-long plan for what we're going to do for next year for Brainerd for the zoo.
Well, you've got all those vehicles from the wintertime, so you might as well bring them out in the summertime and do something with them.
They're very creative up there.
What did you do during the winters up there? I mean, obviously you weren't racing. Did you race some snowmobiles?
You raced snowmobiles.
Were you ice fishing?
Oh, no. That's too slow for us. You absolutely race snowmobiles through the winter. And as I said before, you had to keep moving some way. You'd freeze to death. Absolutely freeze to death. So you moved as fast as you could. Whatever you did it just as fast in the wintertime or you froze to death. So, yeah, snowmobiles. Unfortunately, a lot of bars in that area up there. So that certainly occupied a lot of your time in the winter time up there. Go snowmobiling and then go to the bar at night. That's just the kind of the life you led. So I wouldn't trade it for the world. It was great growing up that way, and I wouldn't give it up for the world. Horrific. And like, what more you got? Just keep bringing it. What more you got?
The Skinny is brought to you by American Coach. American Coach. Innovation is our life force. And Fatheads Eyewear. Fatheads Eyewear. Hardcore since '04.
Welcome back to The Skinny. We have Mr. Greg Anderson on the show with us here today, talking about how he got going in the industry, talking about working with WJ, the professor, for a number of years. Of course, his friend John Hagan, as we touched on as well, and the lessons learned from that. I know I also read in there that working with John, he was a basic bottom level, if you will, financially speaking, pro stock guy. And one of the things that you learned in that was, hey, man, if I'm going to go do this again, it's going to be with a team that has the funds, the wherewithal, a chance to go out here and win.
Yep, absolutely. That was everything. I didn't realize it, because I had grown up with my family and we had raced bottom dollar, just went when we could afford to go. And a little bit more elevated when I got with John Hagan, but nothing compared to the people that were touring the country and doing it professionally that had sponsors on the side of the race cars. So yes, that was one of my main requirements. If I was going to get back involved with the pro stock class, I had learned from those previous years with John Hagan, as great a job as we thought we did, still couldn't compete with those guys that were doing it full time, that had factory sponsorships, that had basically, you would call it unlimited funds, but just a lot more funds than we had. So if I was going to get back involved with the game, it would have to be with one of the top 2 or 3 cars in the class. Warren Johnson, I believe Frank Iconio and Bob Glidden were the 3 guys. Our rear Morrison were the 3-4 teams that were winning all the races. And there was one thing in common. They all had sponsorship on the side of their car. They did it full time. They didn't just do it part time. They did it full time. So that was a requirement. Warren was one of those guys, and that's why I accepted the offer with Warren.
You learn your lessons. You become a driver, you win a couple of championships, and then you're really put to the test again. 2010 championship was quite a challenge when you take a look at everything that went on there.
Yeah.
Your house burnt to the ground, your trailer burnt to the ground, and yet somehow you managed to forge forward and win a championship. Is that one the most special?
It is, absolutely is. And there was actually 3 major things that happened. My team owner that helped me create this KB racing team, Ken Black, went down with a major stroke at the beginning of 2010. So 3 major things. We didn't think he was going to live. He was in a coma for 6 months. Never thought he'd come out. We didn't know if this race team would go on or not. We just knew we had to find a way to keep this race team going in case he came out of this coma, in case he came back. He would have something to live for. If the race team had folded while he was under and he came out of this coma and all of a sudden his race team is gone, which was his live stream, it would crush him. So we found a way to keep the team going, just like nothing had happened. And we went on that year. He eventually came out of the coma. It was a miracle. He came out of the coma in mid-2010. We went on to win the championship at the end of the year. It was a great, great year. And then the next night we go to the banquet in downtown LA and we celebrate. It's a hell of a comeback for the year. And my truck driver leaves the banquet Tuesday morning to head back to Pomona racetrack to pick up the trailer and head back to Charlotte. He got 10 miles down the road on I-10, trailer burned to the ground. It just kept coming, and lost the race car, lost everything, completely gutted the trailer. My championship winning car melted through the floor and the trailer. It was just horrific. And like, what more you got? Just keep bringing it. What more you got? It was just one hell of a year.
Hendrick Automotive. Talk to us about that.
I think most people watching this show will realize they've certainly seen Mr. Hendrick, Mr. H, as they like to call him, in action before on TV, and you can see how people look up to the man, how people respect the man. Well, he is that special a person. And I got fortunate enough a few years prior to this to be introduced to him. I had a good friend that raced NASCAR, David Green, the Green family, the three brothers, right? David Green became a good personal friend of mine. He was doing some part-time testing driving work for Rick Hendrick, right? Driving Jeff Gordon's car and Jimmy Johnson's car at test sessions, correct? So anyway, he said, you want to meet Mr. H? Love to meet Mr. H. So went over to the big campus over there and went up into the building, up into Rick's golden office up there, and sat down face to face with him and met him. And David Green always spoke highly of me to him. And basically that was my introduction to him. But for years after that, we always stayed in touch by text, basically 2-3 times a year. You know, how you doing, buddy? Congratulations on your win, whatever. He kind of followed my path. I kind of always followed their path. And then we just stayed in touch. And then when it came time where sponsorship became difficult and I needed a hand, I picked up the phone and I called my buddy and asked him if he had any interest in helping support our dream over here. And he said, dude, I have watched your career for all these years. I completely appreciate what you've done. You're a fantastic person. I would love to help out. I would absolutely love to help out. So just that's how it happened. And as you said before, you have to go through life and you have to make sure you treat everybody right. You never know when you're going to need somebody's help or they're going to need your help. So you can't burn bridges. You got to be fair. You got to be honest with everybody. And he could see that in us. And that's why he jumped on board. He runs a very clean operation over there, a top notch. Everything about the place is wonderful and nice and new. And every employee in that entire operation, the hundreds of employees they've got, you will not find one person ever say a bad word about that man. They love the man. They worship the man because that's the kind of person he is. So, very, very fortunate for that myself, the help he's given me and the relationship we've built. He's excited about this too. He started out drag racing. Before he got into NASCAR, he started out drag racing.
I kind of thought
so
that.
He's got roots in drag racing, and then he got into drag boats, and then the NASCAR deal, and he was basically, he tells me the story, he was one weekend away from hanging that up because they couldn't make it. They couldn't afford to do what they did, and they decided to give it one more shot, and I think it was Jeff Bodine or somebody they put in the car for the weekend, and they won the race. I think it was Darlington. They won the race.
Yeah, right.
That was it. That saved their deal, and it took off from there. They were one race from quitting. Absolutely getting out of it because they couldn't afford to do it.
Yeah, he was talking about his it was either he called back home to his mom or his wife. I can't remember that, but I heard that story.
Yep.
And that was it. If Darlington didn't go well, it was over.
It was over.
That was the end of
Absolutely.
And it was that close.
Yep. And then as we got forward in it, and he decided he wanted to help me, he said, look, he says, I have a very special paint scheme that's very special to myself and my wife. Our son, Ricky, who they lost in a plane crash, in the Martinsville deal there. This was his last scheme that he had on his truck.
I forgot.
Before he got killed.
Yeah.
This is the scheme I want you to put on your car. So I put that car on that scheme on my car, which was identical to what he had on Kyle Larson's car, right?
Yeah.
And I put that on there, and we were, fortunate enough to go out and win a few races and get him some TV time. And said it really affected his wife and him personally. It just because of that paint scheme.
Yeah.
And that's why it's still the same paint scheme on my car. It's very dear to his heart because of his son, Ricky. So
that's
a pretty cool deal, Yeah.
Wow.
Is there any interaction from his side with the different disciplines? You just mentioned Kyle Larson, but he's involved with so much. Does he have a gathering, if you will, of his sponsored people?
Well, he does. He certainly has a network, and everybody respects the man like you're looking up to God. There's no question, and he's earned it. He's absolutely earned it. So yes, it's helped me tremendously with the connections he has and the reputation he has. It's certainly helped our team. I can't lie about that. And beyond that, he's opened his doors at that big NASCAR campus over there to anything we need, any access we need, any equipment we need, any people he has for us to use, tie into them to try and help our program. So we've become very close with the head of his engine shop over there, Scott Maxim, and the president of his company, Jeff Andrews. We built a very tight relationship. They love watching what we do. They want to be involved. We love watching what they do. We want to be involved. And there's absolutely crossover between the two sports that can help both teams. So we are trying to work together, and that's getting more and more so as we go forward, as we all look for the small advantage we can find. They're hard to find gains anymore. So we are trying to work together more than we ever have. And it's a great honor for me, not only to wear that badge on the side of that car, that makes me so proud, but to be involved with their engine gurus over there. They have engineers, and it's another level than we are here.
Want to get the skinny on other guests and different types of motorsports? Check out our YouTube page and get the skinny.
Welcome back to the Skinny. We have a great show working here with Mr. Greg Anderson, of course, so accomplished in NHRA Pro Stock ranks. But as you talk about him and learn about his career, the highs and lows are as drastic as anybody in motorsports. He continues to forge forward, refuses to lose, sticks around with the best people, and that's a big part of the equation. When we talk about the highs and lows and how you've pushed forward, 2014 also became a pretty tough year for you, man. You have open heart surgery, and then you continue to race and continue to win. You just don't get it, do you, man?
I don't get it, no. It's so funny because, we can certainly touch on that. 10 years ago, I had open heart surgery, had a bicuspid aortic valve, which meant my aortic valve was junk. The aorta behind it was aneurysed. It was ready to blow. I had to go in and get surgery. And, of course, being the racer I was, it was everything I could do to convince those doctors it's not that important. I got to race, man. I got a race to get to. I can't take this off. So
can't you just weld a new
can't
parts?
You just patch me up and get me back in a race car? And you hear it all the time from these doctors. Oh, so you're one of those guys. Yeah, I guess I'm one of those guys. Just get me back on that racetrack. Nothing else matters. So, yes, got open heart surgery and got that all fixed up and certainly knocked me down. I had no earthly idea it was that big a deal, but it's a pretty big deal, to be honest with you. So came back from that. We've had a great run, and here we spring 9-10 years forward. And at the time I got the open heart surgery, I had to get a pacemaker installed because after the surgery, I came out with what they call heart block, meant to the top of the heart, wasn't talking to the bottom. You got to have a pacemaker. So now you got to have a pacemaker to go back and race. But anyway, had that for 10 years. And here we are just last week, went and got that redone. It's been the 10-year anniversary. That's what you get in a battery and a pacemaker. So just got the pacemaker done. So when I leave this set, don't slug me in the chest over here. It's still fresh.
Nice.
But it bought me another 10 years, hopefully, guys. And
is there like a two-step in there? Like, can you dial that thing down a little bit, like keep it nice and calm?
As we say, we're constantly looking for power gains in this race car. Hopefully, this guy got a power gain. I got another 20 HP that I can use, and I'm part of that race car. I'm right in the middle of it, so hopefully that's a gain for us team-wise.
So let's talk about KB Racing. You're with them for a long time, very successful, I think ending up at over 170 wins and I don't know how many championships, along the way. Then he decides to retire, and KB Titan is born. The Whiteleys come in. Big changes over there. Talk to us about the before and after.
Well, big shakeup, and yes, Ken Black has been our quarterback. He's been our team owner for 20 years. He created this monster. He's been a fantastic team owner. I can't describe. He's another Rick Hendrick. He's a man that everybody adores, right? But that stroke that he had 10 years ago, it knocked him down pretty hard, and he just has had a struggle for the last 10 years, and he just can't be involved like he needs to be. He can't travel like he wants to travel, come to the races. So it finally came to the point where he said, look, I've loved this deal. It's my dream. It's what kept me alive for the last 10 years. Thank God for this race team, but it's time you look around and find some new investors to help you out going forward into the future, because I can't guarantee how much longer I can be around. So we set out to search for another Ken Black. Good luck with that. How are you going to find another Ken Black? So lo and behold, lightning struck again, and I found, I think, the two perfect partners in Jim Whiteley and Eric Latino, and we merged KB Racing with Titan Racing. We now call it KB Titan Racing. But not only did I bring on two great new quarterbacks, great new team owners that absolutely support this, love the sport. They do it for the love of the sport, not for the money. Perfect partners for me. But we brought in some new talent, the talent that worked with with Titan Racing, the engine builders who used to be the engine builders for Gray Motorsports. Tanner Gray won championships with them.
Sure.
So very talented guys. Mike Smith, Lon Moyer, and Stevie Johns. Three very talented engine guys brought into my fold. And the good news is, usually when you do something like that, you may have friction, because, I'm smarter than you. I've done more than you. We do it this way. You do it that way. Didn't happen. We all dropped our pants from day one and showed everything that we did. We 100% bought into this new team, and we've gone forward this year. It's been a smooth transition, and the team has absolutely progressed. We are a better race team than we were a year ago because of it, and we will continue to become a better and better race team because of that. So all positives. Great run with Ken Black. Can't thank him enough. Still love to have him come to the races and be a part of our deal. But this new partnership has made the team just that much bigger, that much badder, and the sky's the limit, I think.
There you go. That's what it's like to be on the inside of KB Racing and the latest changes as well. They continue to win. Such a strong team. We have one more segment to go with Mr. Greg Anderson. Stay with us.
As he said at the beginning.
Show me a good loser, I'll show you a loser.
The Skinny is brought to you by Fatheads Eyewear. Fatheads Eyewear, hardcore since '04. And American Coach. Innovation is our life force.
Welcome back to The Skinny. We've had a great show here with Mr. Greg Anderson. We're inside of the MAVTV booth, and welcome to 2024. An exciting year here to go. Another 40 shows coming your way here, so we'll have some great guests along the way, but none any better than this guy. And to go back and talk about one of your teammates that we had on at the end of 2023, Mr. Kyle Koretsky, and we're doing a little bit of homework on him. And I found it ironic that his father had made it to the finals at the U.S. Nationals and had never won a race. You beat him. And then we fast forward a little bit. Kyle finally makes it to a final, and he's beside you, and he beats you. How crazy is that it works out that way?
It is crazy, and it's the Chaos family. I guess that's the way it should be. Just continue the chaos, right? And
Captain Chaos and Kid Chaos.
Kid Chaos. Kyle was finally able to close the family dream and make that happen, and somehow I'm in the other lane again. So I ruined their dream, years ago with Kenny Sr., and this time it was Kyle that made it happen for him. So I couldn't be happier for him.
Can he throw you any love? He's like, hey,
Kenny,
that's what you get.
Kenny did not throw me any love because he still thought that he wanted to be the first one to get it done, and unfortunately, and he got to have a little bit of ego. He got a little bit of ego like everybody does. All us racers do. So he was proud of his kid, but he sure wanted it to be him. And ended up not being him.
He I think the way Kyle described it was you used to beat the brakes off of his dad. I think that was about the way that was. And he said, finally, I was able to, to vengeance my father's honor or my family's honor or whatever.
It's a great family. I've had a ball with them.
Yeah, and the fact that your teammates, he said at the top end, he said he was not happy. I said, well,
he was not happy that he lost, period.
Yeah.
It could have been to anybody, but as he said at the beginning.
Show me a good loser, I'll show you a loser.
Yeah.
No, none of us like to lose.
You're so driven, man. And as we look back at 2023, it took you a while to get going. I think your first win didn't happen till August or so. Yeah. And then I think you tagged together about 3 of them, put together another final round there towards the end. So you closed the season out really nicely.
We did. We absolutely did. And there's no question about it. We have now a bigger team, a bigger group of teams under our KB Titan umbrella now to worry about. I can't just worry about Greg Anderson. So I'm not going to lie. For several months leading up, I kind of used myself as the crash test dummy, whatever you want to call it, the test dummy, and it helped our team overall. We had a lot of our teammates winning races. I wasn't, but I was learning a lot of things for leading towards the playoffs. So yeah,
it seemed like everybody was going more rounds. So.
It seemed like it. A lot of race wins for KB Titan this year. I think Dallas had 4 or 5 wins, and the team wide, we had a great year. We definitely won more races than the other big group, the Elite Motorsports group. They won the trophy at the end of the year. So hats off to them. They got it done at the right time. I had a great run in the playoffs. The whole team did. We had a great run, and we ended up, losing it at Pomona. But, it came down to the last race. That's all you can ask for is a chance when you come down to Pomona. I had a chance. We just didn't get it done, but still a good year, just not a great year.
Second the points is not bad. Thanks for taking the time. Thanks for coming by. We look forward to that 3rd generation racer to get in the seat. And can you give us any tidbits? Are there any plans? Like, do you see it happening anytime soon?
Yeah, I would think that, as I said earlier, my candle's certainly starting to burn down, and reality says, Father Time says, you're not going to be able to keep let the clutch out with these 25-year-old guys forever. So my long-term look, maybe 1 more year for me, and then we'll give him a shot. So, if it extends another year past that, he's fine. I didn't start this gig till I was 38 years old. So he's got plenty of time yet. So, if he's only 25 years old now, so he got plenty of time. We're not trying to rush into it. But I think and I hope when that day comes for me to get out, I'll realize it, that he's knocking on the door. Yeah. It's time for you to go. Don't stay past your time. So that's my biggest fear, that I stay past my prime, past my time when I can actually win races. And that's what I tell people every day. When I can't win anymore, I'm out. So if I need help with that reminder, you come knock on my door.
Great stuff, man. I think you're still safely getting it done, but we look forward to it. And great to get that little break right here on the skinny. So speaking of the skinny, now you get the skinny on this guy. Wonderful, wonderful man. Great, talented racer, and certainly appreciate the time you spent with us here. Hope you enjoyed the show.